Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, working with members to find health coverage for every stage of life, helping to make care and coverage more accessible in more ways for more people across the Rochester community. Details online at excellusbcbs.com.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made by two Rochesterians, two women who decided at different points in their lives to hit the road for more than just a vacation. Roughly a decade ago, we sat down with Christina Le Beau, a Rochester journalist and writer who decided with her family to try on a nomadic kind of lifestyle. They packed their things into an Airstream. They traveled the United States for years. Their daughter had learning experiences far outside any classroom. They followed their interests and their curiosity, and sometimes stayed for a while in a single place, sometimes not too long. And not long ago, Christina moved back to Rochester, but has plenty of affection for the nomadic lifestyle and learned a lot on the road. More recently, Alison Konecki and her husband decided to get out on the road and out of the country. She's a Rochesterian who has been living in California. She and her husband charted a list of places around the world they wanted to experience, and they've been out there doing that for months. Soon they're going to depart for Asia. Money is tight, but they become pretty good at finding cheap ways to stay and dine, and they meet a lot of locals, not just tourists on these kind of travels. Now, we've known for weeks that we wanted to bring these women together for a conversation about life on the road, but we should note that both had a similar request of us. They feel strongly about some of the turmoil happening in our world. They didn't want to be glib about travel or adventure when so many people are hurting. And so I've assured them I think it's actually a really good time to have this conversation. More Americans are inquiring about living abroad, or at least traveling abroad for longer stretches. And for Chris, I wondered, did the tenor of your experiences change over the last decade in this country? Did politics become more prominent, more divisive? Or was it the opposite? Did you find more humanity out on the road and less vitriol? So there's a lot to talk about, and I think it'll be a fun conversation, but there's a lot of substance here, too. In studio, let me welcome back to the program Chris Le Beau, writer and traveler, but Rochester native back, or at least a Rochester resident once again.
Right.
Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
When did we talk? It felt like
2016.
It was 10 years ago.
It was 10 years ago.
10 years ago. And Alison Konecki, a traveler and arts administrator, joining us from, I actually don't even know where. Where are you right now, Alison?
Currently San Francisco.
San
About
Francisco.
to take off in another week.
All right. Well, it's great to have you, Alison. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to ask Chris and then Alison to briefly describe what your approach to travel was or is, and then we're going to kind of talk about individual experiences and what you've experienced. For Alison, as an American abroad, it's an interesting time. For Chris, seeing a lot of the country. So 2016, we sat down when you were heading out.
Yes.
What did you think you were going to do 10 years ago?
The impetus, if you maybe remember, our daughter at the time was 12 years old. We knew we were kind of losing time with her at home, and we wanted to be able to spend more time with her, slow time down if we could. And we wanted to experience the country firsthand. We wanted to get out and see history where it actually happened, see science in action, visit wild places. We didn't want to be visitors. We wanted to live like locals. We wanted to chase our interests, expose our daughter to new places, new people, let her pursue things that really interested her. She was at the time very much into astronomy and space, still is, although her studies have taken her in a different direction. She's in college now. And so we just wanted to kind of get out there and explore. It really wasn't about escaping Rochester or anything like that. It was more about exploring places we'd never been and seeing this whole big country and Canada as well. And we didn't know how long we would do it. We thought at least a couple years, and it turned into 8 years. And we ultimately decided to buy a place back in Rochester once she was off to college. And, we just wanted some place where we could kind of gather on breaks and just have a home base. We kept the Airstream. We have spent the last year and a half renovating the house we just bought, and now we're renovating the Airstream, and then we'll be getting back out again.
Wow. And one of the things I remember from our conversation was there was a lot of, this is the kind of thing that people talk about but never do.
Right.
Whether it's for your child and education, whether it's for your sense of wanting to understand a country better or the world better. So I'm eager to talk to you about what you think those 8 years told you about this country. But I will say, having done it for 8 years, longer than you might have thought. Did you have any sense at any point like we shouldn't have done this, or any regrets, or did you feel we could do this forever?
No, absolutely not. I would still be doing this probably right now if life wasn't life. My husband and I both feel that way, that there's something about being out on the open road. There's something about moving constantly, constant change, having to be resourceful, resilient, like just sort of, it makes you feel very alive, for lack of a better word. But I think we knew we couldn't do it forever. So this is kind of a nice way to have it. I've been saying this is our hybrid era. Shout out to Taylor Swift. This is our hybrid era, and but there's no regrets at all about doing this. And if anything, I wish we'd done it sooner. And yeah.
So Alison's story is a little different. As a traveler and arts administrator from Rochester, living in California with her husband, you and your husband had talked for a long time about getting out of the country for extended amounts of time, knowing that would be very difficult financially, but you could be resourceful, you could find ways, you could see more of the world. So take us through the decision of why to do this now. You're sort of in the middle of it. You're back in California for a little while. I know you're going back out soon. We'll talk about that. But what you decided to do and how you did it, Alison.
Yeah, so we'd been talking about this travel and saving for about a decade, which is kind of crazy. But travel has always been really important to me. And actually, right before we moved to San Francisco, we took 3 months to WOOF, which is working on farms in France. And so I've definitely done that kind of budget travel, traveling cheaply and doing it in a different way, which is really fun. Could also talk about that because that's a wonderful way to travel. But I'd always really wanted to really kind of see the world and see certain places that have always been on my radar. Back in grad school, actually, I learned about the Grand Tour when kind of the well-heeled fancy pants aristocrats would kind of have a capstone to their education and go out and actually see the things that they had been learning about. And it just always stuck in my imagination. So it's something that I really wanted to do. And I like what Christine said, kind of exploring our interests. And that's how we really structured this trip. It was I wanted to see some of the artwork I had studied in grad school. I wanted to see some animals. I love nature. So it was just a really fun time to talk with my husband and be like, what are our wildest dreams? What do we want to see? Where do we want to go? And it was just fun to kind of let our imaginations run wild. We did have to hone it in after a while, but it's really cool to explore all the things that you want to do, want to see, and talk about why and what the priority is, and then create a plan from there. So, like I said, we did take a long time to save. And, when I traveled and did the farming thing back in the day, you can do it really cheaply. We decided, saved a little bit up, and we're on our way. We're at a different stage in our life and had to think about different things, very mundane things like, health insurance, how to cover that while we're abroad. So it looked a little bit different this time, and I can dig into that if you want, but that was the planning in a nutshell.
Okay. And you headed out for this big first leg when?
We left in September, and that's when we did Europe. And without a visa, you can stay 90 days. So we planned it basically to day 89 in case anything went wrong with a flight. Because they don't care if the flight is canceled. You only have 90 days. But yeah, so we planned it out and kind of explored from there. We left it a little bit loose because it's a little bit easier to move around Europe. And we just said, we'll go there and hang out for a while.
If you're watching on YouTube, that is a very Indiana Jones-esque illustration that we did. Who did that? Who was that? Oh, that was Jeff on our team. Hey, Jeff, great stuff on that. So you're seeing a little bit of the route there that included Iceland, Germany, Austria, Italy, Germany again, Belgium, England, France, Spain, Greece, for starters. Did you want to jump in? I saw you there, Chris.
Well, I wanted to mention, Alison talked about saving up for her travels. And I wanted to mention that all the years we've lived on the road, we've actually worked on the road. There are people who do what we did and save up, quit their jobs, save up, and go. But there are a lot of people who do what we did, which was continue to work. My husband works for a company here in Rochester, and they let him go remote the entire time. He's now still remote, even though we're back in Rochester, same company. I'm a freelance writer and editor, and have been for a long time. So I just wanted to mention that the part of what was appealing about going on the road is that we both had jobs that we could take remote with us. We could do them from wherever we were. And we literally did. I mean, Don always kept his East Coast hours no matter where we were. So we spent a summer in Alaska, and he had a 5:15 a.m. meeting every day. It was 9:15 here, but he kept his East Coast hours. So, you make it work.
Okay. And Alison, for you, September to the winter, you're back in California, going back out soon. We're going to talk about that. But what has been the plan for you beyond saving? Is it a pause in the job? Is it we'll see you when we get back and hope there's a space for us? What's that mindset?
Yeah, it's definitely both of us left our jobs, and if we could have kept them and worked remotely, absolutely would have done that. I think that's a great option. It was not an option for our particular jobs, and it was something we talked about, and we were ready for a change and decided to kind of take the plunge. Kind of a scary time to do that, but we believed in kind of this plan we had for so long, and so we decided to do it anyway. But yeah, we'll be returning and on the job hunt again. So yeah.
So your next leg, you leave next week, and where are you going?
We start off in Japan, then we'll be going to Taiwan, then Vietnam. Then we're going to be going to Malaysian Borneo and Australia and New Zealand.
Has any of the upcoming travel been affected by the war in Iran?
I keep reading about flights possibly getting cut in Asia because of fuel shortages, things like that. So we will see. So far, we haven't had to alter our plans too much. We had been talking about trying to fit in Egypt. It's been a dream of mine to go there forever. Now is not the time. So that was obviously next.
Okay. So let me ask Alison first, and then Chris, maybe related questions. But going abroad at this point, you and your husband depart in September. You're all over Europe. Now you're going all over Asia. And I'm curious to know, as an American abroad, what the commentary has been like. If there's been any sort of backlash or commentary from others about this country, or positive or negative, I guess, what that has been like. Anything that stands out to you?
So I was definitely very nervous as we left about that. And obviously people, everyone wants to know, where are you from? Where are you coming from? Why are you here? Tended to say we were from California instead of the US. It just kind of shifts the conversation a little bit. People are like, oh, California, they want to know about California.
Why not just say the United States?
I think, like I said, it just shifts the conversation. Oh, I'm from the US. Then it kind of is like, oh, let's talk about what's happening in the US. When you say you're from California, people usually conjure up images of California and kind of want to talk about that. Now, granted, if someone still wants to talk about the US and what's going on, happy to do that, but try and come from a position more of like, we're here to explore. We're not, here to kind of, I don't know, get into some of those issues with people. So, like I said, always happy to have those conversations, but I just think it's different when you say, I'm from California, and it also, the other thing is it just kind of locates you a little bit more. When you say you're from the US, it is so big geographically. I think it makes for a more interesting conversation when you say, yeah, from California or New York. Inevitably, when I say I'm from New York, people always assume the city. And then I used to say, no, Rochester, whole other part, closer to Canada.
Closer to Toronto.
Closer to Toronto. Did you have people ask you, when they hear you're from the United States, do they ask you about President Trump? They ask you, like, do people like the president? They ask you if you do. Did that come up?
Surprisingly, no. I think people were probably very sensitive to it. It surprised me, honestly. I usually got so it's kind of a look of recognition. Only once did I kind of get I hesitate to even call it a negative reaction. I was in a market in Greece, and I was chatting with a market stall owner, and then his colleague came over. He's like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I said, "California." And the temperature just changed, and he's like, "Oh, have a nice day." And he turned
Mm,
around and
mm.
could tell he didn't, want to engage. And honestly, that's fine too, because it's definitely better than hostility. And um, his colleague was like, "That's an interesting time to be traveling, to be from where you are." And I said, "Yep, it's challenging." But honestly, that was the only time. Otherwise, people were really lovely, and I don't want to be Pollyanna about it, but I do think most people just, want to enjoy each other's company. They know you're on the road. They know obviously you're out there for a reason. So we usually talked about like, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you interested in?" Which I think was really nice.
No, I mean, people really are lovely. I mean, the world is filled with a lot of lovely people, and it's easy
Hmm.
to affix labels. So, Chris, get a little closer to your microphone. I've been told there we go. And so your experience is different. You're traveling domestically, and you did it for 8 years, 2016 to 2024.
Correct.
Okay, so that coincides directly with a lot of big change in
Oh,
this
yeah.
country. Did that affect you? Did things over those almost a decade? Did anything become more political? Did discussions become more political? Did anything feel different over that time?
Well, there's different answers to all those questions,
Okay.
but did anything feel different? Well, yes, of course, because the country was undergoing such change and upheaval. And we spent time, in every state except Hawaii. Couldn't drive there, so we spent, and most of Canada as well. That was actually, I would say, the only time we really encountered questioning was in Canada. And what would oftentimes happen is when people would find out we were American, they would. We'd encountered a lot of like curiosity and concern from our Canadian neighbors, and I would very quickly make clear that most of the United States doesn't support what's happening either. That we're more on the side with Canada, most of us, truth, and that seemed to really help. But we had a lot of curiosity from people in Canada, and.
What do they ask you?
Well, they would. What do you think of Trump? I mean, they were very direct. We would have people see our plates. We'd pull in somewhere and they'd see we're from U.S. Before we even say anything else, we'd have people come up to us and say, "What do you think of Trump?" And we would assure them, not fans. Most of America, not fans, and that was good for them. That's what they wanted to hear. The people we encountered. I'm not
Okay.
saying everybody in Canada is like that, but the people we encountered were supportive that way. And as far as traveling through the country, our country itself, now, one thing I do need to say right up front is, we spent a lot of time in the South. A very big goal with our travels was to visit as many sites related to the civil rights movement, Civil War and slavery, a lot of areas of the South that were pivotal in those regards. And so we were in politically very different climates than, New York State or California. But two things. One, we're white, so let's just be straight there. We didn't have problems traveling in those states during this political climate because, we're not people of color. So that was something that we were very aware of, that we were probably treated differently, even if, some of our opinions became known, or if they saw some stickers on our Airstream door or whatever it is that would give them a clue as to where we might lean. We were treated very differently, I think, than we would have been if we were people of color. That's number one. But number two, the thing that I will say consistently through those 8 years is that we found just lovely, good people everywhere. I mean, there were a few conversations I had, oddly, mostly in like waiting rooms while I was waiting for the truck to get serviced. That seemed to be where these conversations got struck up with a few, people who were not politically aligned. But for the most part, the thing that was so wonderful is everywhere we went, everywhere in this country, north, south, east, west, small town, big city, didn't matter. We found so many people who were just good and kind people who cared about other human beings, cared about the planet. Like, it just, if nothing else, it gave me hope. I mean, that was the thing that I keep going back to when I think about our time on the road is, when everything is happening that's happening right now, and it's just escalating, and there's so much bad in this country right now. The thing that honestly keeps me hopeful is knowing that there are more people who who care for other people than there aren't.
So square this up, because we get this caricature of each other as political actors,
Right.
or as identities, as opposed to individuals. So you're traveling in a lot of spaces where your politics were not shared,
Correct.
but most people were lovely,
Yeah. And
kind.
Kind. And I mean, in some cases I knew their politics, and in some cases, most cases I didn't. I mean, that was the thing. It's just like there was
But
no
even
reason.
when they knew your politics.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, I guess it's not even so much about, but yes.
I'm not saying I'm surprised. I want to know what you think the lesson is there and how we look at each other.
Well, I mean, I guess I go back to what I said earlier, that I think there are more people, more good. There's more good in this country than bad. Now, there's a lot of nuance to that, because which we won't get into with all of this. I mean, in terms of who you support and who you don't, but there's just a lot of. It just gave me hope that when I look forward to what's going to happen, say in the midterms, what's going to happen in the next presidential election, just knowing what I know from the people I've met throughout the country, there are just so many more people who don't support the kind of divisiveness and hatred that we're seeing. And I just have to believe, because honestly, it's the only thing that lets me sleep at night, if I don't believe this, that that we're going to be okay. That there are enough of us who support our fellow humans and our planet, that we're going to be okay. That's what I take away.
So every state but Hawaii.
Every state but Hawaii. Still can't figure out how to drive there.
And there are, let's see here, 11 provinces in Canada. There's 9.
I think there are
There's
provinces and territories. There's 13-ish, something like that.
It's 9. I knew it was on one side of 10. It's 9 provinces, but then territories.
Then 3 territories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been to everywhere except Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and Newfoundland, Labrador.
Okay. Now producer Megan Mack says it's 10, and we have all failed Canadian geography.
I think, yeah.
And I'm embarrassed.
Oh, no.
I can tell you how many we've been to, and then let's see, I add those up in my head. Is that including territories?
I was told there'd be no geography quizzes today.
Is that including territories?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, bottom line is you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
How many miles did you put on? Do you know?
No, except I could guesstimate probably 300,000, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe not quite.
And any significant surprises for you, good, bad, or the other, in traveling this country?
Oh boy, good, bad, or the other. Well, good is one of the things I just said that gave me hope, meeting so many people who were like
the real humanity.
The real humanity.
Yeah.
And just the beauty of this country, the utter beauty and wildness of places that you don't really get to see unless you are lucky to live there. Alaska, we spent a summer in Alaska, and we've spent a summer in the Canadian Rockies, spent a summer in the Canadian Maritimes, a bunch of national parks, of course, throughout the country, and just the beauty of this country. And as far as bad,
I think we got a picture on YouTube of Alaska.
Oh,
there
yeah,
they
that's
are.
our. That was an amazing trail at Kenai Fjords National Park in Alaska. That's an ice field. That ice field feeds a bunch of glaciers. This actually leads right into what I was going to say. As far as bad, the other thing about all these travels is, even though we knew intellectually about things like climate change and the way that humans are affecting the planet, it's really a different thing to be able to see that up close. For instance, that trail we just saw there, to walk on a receding glacier okay, to visit a marine laboratory that's repopulating the coral reefs, to to see the way that animals, wild animals, caribou and muskox in Alaska, or sea turtles and manatees in Florida, to see how their migration patterns have had to change because of climate change. Like to physically see those things, to experience those things. Again, even though intellectually we know all that, it's a very different thing to experience it firsthand. And it just makes you want to protect it more. And our daughter is now actually majoring in environmental studies. She's graduating this spring. So I think that affected her as well.
Do you think that the people who live in the places you just described, do they feel the urgency that you felt as kind of a traveler seeing it up close?
I think the people who, yes, I think the people who live there and see that up close do, but there's also a big disconnect. I mean, Alaska is a very conservative state, and yet, you can't help but see how climate change is affecting Alaska, for instance, or Florida. Florida is an exceptionally conservative state, and yet so much of what's happening with climate change is affecting that state. So there's a disconnect. And this is that forever question in our politics. You vote against your best interests. You see it up close, and yet you still vote another way. It's a confusing thing.
When you traveled over those 8 years in this Airstream, you, your husband, your daughter,
Yep.
you're deciding kind of it's not like you didn't have any plan, but you're deciding as you go, and you've got flexibility to
Right.
say, we're going to go here, we're going to spend more time here. Is there anywhere that there's another picture on YouTube there.
Oh, that's White Sands
There's
National Park.
That's in New Mexico.
Yeah.
This is a great example. So
Yeah.
Is there anywhere that you were surprised that you ended up spending that much time, or somewhere that really grabbed you and your family and you said, we've got to do this?
Well, New Mexico is a good example, actually. We ended up spending a lot of time there over the years, including 6 months during COVID lockdown. That's where we were in Santa Fe during deep, March to fall of 2020, when everything went into lockdown. That's where we chose to spend our time with another traveling family who we were friends with. We set up shop at a campground and kind of lived there for 6 months. But Fargo, North Dakota, funny, right? I mean, we think of it because of the movie, but we were heading down from Canada and had to stop in Fargo for some truck work, and ended up kind of falling in love with the place. There were a lot of places like that, actually, where we would stop over because we needed to have the truck serviced or go grocery shopping, or just someplace to stop on the way to somewhere else, and we would get to know it, because these are places you wouldn't normally go for vacation. And that was kind of the point. One of the points of this type of travel was to be able to live like locals, find a local hardware store, find a local coffee shop, kind of, be resourceful, figure things out everywhere you went. And even though it might not have been the most exciting things, it was new. So it made it really interesting.
What is the flattest part of the country?
The flattest part of the country? Well, Death Valley is pretty flat.
Western Ohio is the pancake.
Western Ohio,
it's incredible.
Yes. I mean, yes, the middle of the country, there's a lot of flat parts, even in the parts you don't think are flat.
What is the most surprisingly beautiful part of the country?
Most surprising.
I mean, we saw White Sands. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
We get it. But
Well, funny thing, I will say, just a little shout out for local. After all these years traveling and going all over, we still think the Finger Lakes is one of the prettiest parts of the country. Absolutely.
I will agree with you there. The Finger Lakes.
Yeah. So Finger Lakes definitely beautiful, but surprisingly, I don't know. I mean, there's so many times we would. We're big hikers. That was a big motivation for what we did, too. There's so many times you just get up on top of a mountain, and I can think of the White Mountains in New Hampshire. You get up on top of a mountain, and it's just, or Alaska, you're just in awe of this country, this planet. It's just, the beauty is astounding.
Does it make you feel smaller?
In a good way, yes,
Yeah.
It absolutely does. It makes, I think, if more people could understand what specks we are in space and time, I think there would be so much. I mean, it sounds, Alison said Pollyanna-ish. I mean, this sounds Pollyanna-ish, But I do think if people had the perspective of understanding how small humans are, we would not be as divisive as we are, and we would understand that we do need to protect our resources.
I've got some similar questions for Alison on the other side of this break, but we've got to take the only break. When we come back, we're talking to Christina Le Beau in studio and Alison Konecki remotely from California. Both are travelers, and I mean not going on vacation, but getting out and spending a lot of time on the road. Chris, with her family, 8 years in an Airstream all over this country in Canada. Alison and her husband, since September, out on the road throughout Europe, now heading to Asia for months at a time. And how they do it and what they're experiencing as Americans in the conversations they've had. We're going to talk to Alison about her experiences in Europe so far and where they're going next. And then we're going to take some of your feedback, some questions from the audience as well, on the other side of our only break.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Mary Cariola Center, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson, believing an informed and engaged community is a connected one. marycariola.org.
All right, we got a fact check. Chris is a journalist and a writer, so Chris did the fact check.
Wait. Don't hold me to that. Hold on.
10 provinces, 3 territories in Canada.
10 provinces and 3 territories.
Did you make it up to Tuktoyaktuk? That's my favorite names town in Canada.
No, but we did go to the Arctic Circle.
I mean, that's where it is, yeah.
That's where you're talking about is Canada. Well, you said you know that. But we did make it to the Arctic Circle. And are we back on?
Yeah.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, we're on.
Okay.
We're fact-checking ourselves here.
Yeah. All right, I didn't know we were back on again. We did make it to the Arctic Circle. In Alaska, there is a highway, which people might know from the TV show Ice Truckers, or it's something called it's called the Dalton Highway, and it goes north to the Arctic Ocean, and it was built for the Alaska pipeline, so it's mainly a trucker's road. But you can also drive it. And we had planned to go all the way to the Arctic Ocean. We were traveling with some friends. We ran into a few issues that prevented us from going all the way. But we did go to the Arctic Circle, and we went over the Brooks Range, which is the highest pass in Alaska. And so we almost got to the Arctic Ocean. Next time.
Amazing. All right, Alison Konecki and her husband have been out traveling all throughout Europe. And we've got some pictures to share from some of their journey that started in September. You started in Iceland, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Started it off with a bang.
Okay. But everybody I've ever talked to who's been to Reykjavik and Iceland loves it. I've got pictures of you snorkeling in Iceland, which is not something most of us who hear Iceland think about. Tell me about that.
So this is snorkeling in Sulfra Fissure. You get to actually snorkel between 2 continents. This water is filtered for, oh my goodness, I don't even know how long. And then it pops up, and it is some of the clearest water in the world. It was incredible. It's also some of the coldest. It was just about freezing, which is why you just kind of hang out there and don't move much. You're wearing a dry suit, but those gloves are just wetsuit. So the more you move, the more water goes in, and your face is just frozen. But it works. You just kind of float along, marveling at this beauty and trying not to freeze to death.
Well, this is a good place to start with. Some of the audience has questions, really for both of you, but I'll start with you, Alison, because we're going to kind of work through your travels here. Questions on sort of how to afford this kind of thing. And one of the things that you've written is that you and your husband knew there were certain things in Europe that you really wanted to do, and that you were willing to sort of set aside some savings for that. And then a lot of days were supposed to be sort of no or low expense days, and you make that work. Is that a way to kind of balance it for you?
Yes. The vast majority of our days is, wandering around, just enjoying where we're at, taking it slow. But there were a few activities that we decided we needed to budget for, like that snorkel. Everything in Iceland is expensive. So that was something that we budgeted for. And for this whole trip, we just kind of identified a few key things that were really important to us that we thought were worth the money and the budget. And otherwise, luckily I'm a museum nerd. Museums in Europe are very affordable, if not free sometimes. So that was great. And it worked out because I love art and history. So But yeah, it's just kind of looking at all the places you're going and what really is important and rises to that level of like, yeah, this is worth setting aside some money for. We also this was not like vacation. We're not staying at fancy hotels. Rarely do that on vacation anyway. Clean and in a good location to get where we want to go was the name of the game. So you're kind of not spending a lot of money on accommodation. And I like food. You know, food's important. So we had probably a bigger, you could do it even cheaper, but food is important. So we had kind of like a modest budget there, but no fancy restaurants, more just kind of, street food, um, bistros, cafes, that kind of thing. And you can get such good food without going to fancy restaurants anyway. So, um, and when you're thinking about budgeting for this trip, it was a big, like I said, we saved for so many years, but the first few years it was just kind of like saving money, saving money. And then as we got closer, we started looking at an actual budget, how long we could be out on the road, the average expenses for the places. And to be fair, on this trip, we did not pick necessarily the most affordable places. This trip was about going to some places we'd always dreamed about. So that managed what we were able to do in terms of time. And I think I mentioned before, a lot of the budget was more mundane things that are not very sexy, but very important. Out of pocket health insurance while we were gone, on top of travel insurance, cell phone plan. We did maintain our apartment. I know a lot of people who leave on these trips, they like sell their house or they, let go of their apartment lease. We kept it. So it the thing about planning for a kind of travel like this is you really have to look at what your plans are on the other side, what you need while you're gone, and then create an individual budget from there. So it's really hard to say like, oh, you need X amount of money. And you also have to look at what you're trying to get out of the trip as well. Like for me, I just wanted to see art, be in a place, kind of see people, eat some good food, no big expectations in terms of like crazy activities. Um, so yeah,
I
you
think
just
that,
kind of build
yeah, I
the
think that's a
budget
good
from
model.
there.
So this is not meant to be rapid fire, but you went to a lot of places, so we're going to kind of go fast, and I'm going to tell you a
Okay.
country that you went to in order. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got
Okay.
some pictures to share, and you just tell me a brief a brief glimpse of this part of the trip. So next, from
Okay.
Iceland, you went to Germany. What'd you do there?
We actually landed in Munich the very last day of Oktoberfest. We had been planning to avoid it because of the expense, but we landed and we're like, how can we not go to Oktoberfest? And it was a hoot. It was a hoot. Wow. Those tents were so packed. We could not sit down to have a beer in the tent halls, but we got to watch the chaos and then have a beer outside in the rain instead, which was also fun. So that was crazy.
Might have been
That was
even
great.
better. From there, you went to
Yeah.
Austria. What'd you do in Austria?
Oh my goodness. We stayed at this little farm in, I don't even know the town because it wasn't even a town. It was this farm in the valley. And right outside our door, there were these cows. We woke up to the lowing of cows as the light kind of struck the valley. It was just beautiful. Yeah, it was incredible.
Then to Italy.
Oh, we spent a good amount of time in Italy because it's Italy. Who doesn't want to spend time there? This is when we went to Venice. I love traditional crafts and art, and so we stopped in a traditional craft um, or traditional mask workshop, and so I got to see this gentleman as he was making the masks. He was telling me about the process. Behind him are these molds, and I asked him like, "How old are they?" And he's like, I don't even know. They've been around before me. They'll be around after me, is what he said.
Wow. Back to Germany again from Italy.
Yeah, so when we went back to Germany this time, we actually stayed in a teeny town that probably no one has ever heard of because we had a family connection with a home there and we got to just kind of breathe and plan the next part of our travel. And really quick, what was awesome about that is we had some friends of family who would check in on us all the time and wanted to make sure we were having a good time and invited us to this little festival that they were having for St. Martin's. Bought me this delicious pork-filled lunch, and we were just chatting, and they found out I hadn't had schnapps before, so they brought over all the schnapps and were like, "Oh, you got to try this." And um, some of their friends didn't speak English, I didn't speak German, but they were translating, and we were just having a great time, just sitting and chatting in this little kind of community hall in this tiny German town.
Love it. Then to Belgium. What'd you do in Belgium?
Oh, ate chocolate, drank beer, and then visited this lace museum, which was incredible. It's called Bobbin Lace, and I don't know if you can see, but in the image there are, my goodness, hundreds of little pins, and they go rapid fire moving these bobbins around to follow a pattern. I would love to explain more, except I can't even wrap my head around it. And I talked to them about this process and I watched it, but it is just incredible how they make this lace. And they were so generous with their time, these people in the lace museum explaining the process. And this woman is like, "Oh, it's great because you cannot think about anything else. So it's perfect for stress because everything goes away. You have to have 100% focus on what you're doing."
Wow. Then to England.
Oh, we went to London, the Cotswolds, Cornwall. This image is from the Cotswolds. We went on the Cotswolds Way. Felt like an English heroine, walking through the countryside. We saw pheasants. They would kind of scatter as we walked near them, and all these sheep, lots of sheep. It was wonderful. It was so beautiful.
From there to France. What'd you do there?
We stayed in the Dordogne region, so it's famous for its castles. This is like a true medieval castle.
This looks fancy. You said nothing fancy. This looks fancy.
It looks fancy, but let me tell you, they have a drawbridge, an actual drawbridge with spikes coming up because that was their plan to impale people should they try to cross when they didn't want them to. And those little holes where they would pour boiling oil down to their intruders. So a real nasty sort of castle, very fun.
They don't still do that, do they?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. And from there to Spain.
Oh my goodness, I loved Spain. The food and the art just blew me away. I couldn't even narrow down photos for you guys. I wanted to send so many. This is from the Dali Theater Museum. So Salvador Dali built this huge, he calls it one artwork, and it's this building with all these fantastical rooms, and it's just his imagination run wild. You feel like you're actually walking through his mind. Yeah, I loved it. It was incredible.
And finally, even though you went to Greece high school, you went to the country of Greece, the real,
Yep,
the original, the OG Greece.
the OG Greece. Yeah, we ended up spending, I think, about a week in Athens, although we had planned to go elsewhere. There was a big farmers strike where they were creating blockades in the road with tractors and such. Interesting to encounter that and learn about that and what was happening. But we ended up hanging out in Athens, which is not a bad place to be. Every time we turned around, we would look up, see the Acropolis, see the Parthenon. It just never ceased to thrill me. I would look up and my heart would kind of leap. It was so exciting.
So after all this, I asked Chris if this kind of travel makes you feel small, and she said in a good way. It does. Seeing the beauty of this country, seeing the beauty of the world, in some ways can't help but make you realize your place in it and maybe humble you a little bit and maybe inspire you to protect it more. Did you feel like that at any point, Alison?
Oh, absolutely. I was nodding my head vigorously when Christine was saying that because it makes you feel small, but I'll just say again, yeah, in a very good way because you feel really lucky to be a part of this kind of incredible world, and you do care about kind of protecting it. You care about the people that you're encountering too. Like, um, you can see images of places, but and obviously that's wonderful. Can't go everywhere, but to see it in person made me appreciate it on a deeper level, and really also realize kind of the fragility of these cultural sites, these natural sites, because you see it up close, the things that do threaten these places.
So let me get a little feedback here from the audience. Barb says, before she left, Chris was in a healthy food book club I was in. And I'm wondering if she found, I see you searching your memory here.
No,
Barb,
I know who we're
Barb
talking
says,
about.
I'm wondering if she found easy ways to find healthy food on the road.
Well, The easiest is to travel with your own kitchen, which we did. That was one of the best things about what we did, is that our house was with us everywhere we went. That was my favorite part, probably. And beyond that, it's really not a problem anymore to find, especially there's apps, the internet, you can find anything, anywhere, at any time. And so we have never had a problem finding good food, healthy food, anywhere.
And Christian wants to know if both of your guests were actively trying to avoid tourists on their travels. I'll start with you, Chris.
Well, not actively trying, but I will say there's something to that stereotype oftentimes, and especially because we were homeschooling our daughter, although on the road it's called road schooling. That's what people call it, road schooling. And there tends to be a bit of a stereotype about homeschooling families at things like, national park ranger programs, and sort of being a little overly enthusiastic about everything. And so I will say that we were aware of those kinds of things, of trying not to be those people. And yeah, so I don't know about actively avoiding tourists. It's kind of hard to do, but we did try to live like locals instead of live like tourists as much as we could.
So let me press that point before I get Allison's answer on this. Why do you think the experience is better if it doesn't feel like you're in sort of a 5-star resort and more that you're living among the locals?
Well, okay, so we're living in campgrounds usually, or
Sure.
but understood what you said. I mean, it is different if we're in our own space. I don't know that it's so much, to me, I don't know that it's so much where you're staying. I think it's more the amount of time that you can spend there. I mean, if you're somewhere for a very short period of time, especially if you don't think you're ever going back again, people might try to cram in everything and see the highlights. And we sort of approached every place we went like we would go back again. So if we didn't see everything, it's okay, because we would go back. Now, did we get back everywhere? No, but a lot of places we did. And so it was more about just doing things that weren't, I mean, yes, we did a lot of the touristy things. We did a lot of the highlights of all the places we went. That's part of the appeal. But we also just tried to, kind of be there and partake of the local economy. And, I mentioned earlier finding local hardware stores. I always find those places fascinating. You go to coffee shops, laundromats. I had to do laundry on the road in laundromats. And, you meet really interesting people in laundromats, and tourists aren't going to meet those people. So it's more that kind of dynamic.
Okay. Alison, Christian wants to know if you are actively avoiding tourists on your travels.
One thing we did change our travels on is when we were planning to go to Spain, we decided not to go to Barcelona, simply because of what we were hearing, that the tourist overload. So we decided not to go there and add to that. And kind of like what Christina was saying, like, you do want to do some of the highlights, but it's also just in how you live other times of your day. Like, similarly, we had to go to laundromats and do laundry, because when you're on the road, you have no other choice. And we went to grocery stores to shop and cook food, and just kind of peppering in your day with like seeing some sights, but also like, going to some different areas that tourists probably wouldn't normally go because they don't have to, or they're not interested in. So it was a mix. Like, there's some things I'm not going to avoid just because they're popular with tourists. There's a reason they're popular, but I think it's just finding a balance and a good mix, so that you get to see more than just the brochure side of a city or a place.
Well. So down to our last couple of minutes, Christina Le Beau, you're going to do this again?
In a hybrid fashion, as they say. We're keeping our house this time. Last time we sold the house. But yes, we are planning to do this again for long stretches, as much as we can. We're right now renovating the trailer.
And do you feel like it would be kind of a semi-permanent existence going forward? You keep the house, but you could 6 months on the road on it, is it like half and half?
We'll see. I mean, that is the hope. who knows what will happen in life, right? But the intention is to do this as long as we want to, can. We don't see this being like a past tense of our lives. I think once a nomad, always a nomad. It's kind of in my blood now, like that desire for constant change, and I think we'll keep doing this.
Alison, you're going to get back on the road next week, and you've got a lot of travels coming up here. Is that it for a while, you think, and then you settle back down? I mean, is that just a resource question?
Yes, there will be a matter of resources. I'll have to build back up. But I think it's also just a mentality about travel. Although we were here to talk about kind of my international travels, the vast majority of them are exploring California when I'm here, and national parks. Love exploring. So yeah, always keep exploring. And when I can, definitely getting out and doing some international things, but always peppering in little explorations wherever you can.
I want to thank our guests for being here, for sharing their experiences. Really remarkable stories from Alison Konecki, a traveler and an arts administrator. Thanks for sharing the story. Safe travels on your next leg here. We'll talk to you in the future. Thanks, Alison.
Have fun.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
And Chris Le Beau, writer and traveler. Chris is going to do this again. Let's keep talking. I mean, I think there are glib ways to have these conversations, and there's interesting substantive ways, and I really appreciate what you both brought here, because it's insight about the world that a lot of us, you're seeing more of it than a lot of us do. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for telling us about it here.
Thank you for asking about it.
Awesome stuff. From all of us at Connections, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. It's not just awesome people like Jeff who made the Indiana Jones map today. We got a whole list, and I should read that list more often, because I want everybody who enjoys Connections to know how many awesome people work on this program. It is a wonderful, wonderful group. I just happen to be in front of the microphone. Thanks for being with us. We're back with you tomorrow on member-supported public media.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.